welcome back to my channel. This is Dom, and I'm going to continue with my journey painting through the sprues from the new Epic Punic Wars that Warlords kindly sent me. If you're interested, you may have seen I did a video on the Numidians, light cavalry and light infantry that were a mainstay of the Carthaginian army through the First and Second Punic Wars. Then swapped sides for the Third Punic Wars with the Romans. But today I thought I'd take a look at the core of the Carthaginian army throughout the period, really. So these are the Libyan Heavy Infantry Spearmen. Now, a little history on these. So originally, it's more than likely the Carthaginians would have fielded hoplite type armies, much as most of the Mediterranean did, mainly composed of citizens, and wealthy people who could afford to equip themselves with the armour and the shields and the weaponry needed to form part of the phalanx for the city. But as time went by, as the country, or as the empire got wealthier, it became more dominated by allied and mercenary infantry. So by the time of the First Punic War, and certainly through the Second, changed a little bit in the Third, needs must and all that, but for the First and Second, predominantly the Carthaginian armies of the time were mercenary and allied forces, officered by a nobleman from Carthage itself. And they were pretty darn effective. They stood toe-to-toe against the Romans. They were a very effective force. Put your mind, although there was a massive rebellion of mercenaries, you can put it out of your mind around the idea that mercenaries were a bit fickle or what have you. They certainly, for most of the period where they fought for Carthage, they gave their all, and certainly were very efficient forces. Anyway, enough of this. Let's have a look at the sprue. Now, the sprue is the same whether or not there's no variations on this sprue, basically what I was going to say. And looking at the Warlord websites, again, I didn't get boxed, so I don't really know what the composition is, but it looks like they're intending these to be ranked up 2 wide and 3 wide, 2 deep and 3 wide, to be a standard unit, which, okay, you'll be fine. And they're nice figures. They're very closely ranked. I actually quite like the fact that this guy's a little bit smaller than the others. Shows a little bit of variation in the actual figure, which is nice, a nice touch actually. Because one of the slight criticisms I have is that there's no officer or sort of command group within these units. Now, I know that probably the Carthaginians didn't actually use standards and such very often with their formations, but it just kind of looks neat. I think for a wargamer, I like to have a few flags. Anyway, these are, let's say, very closely ranked. They're very heavily armoured. They have would have been sort of a bronze type helmet on them, and a sort of scale armour on their torsos and their upper midriff, I guess you say, and large shields, which gives you plenty of opportunity to do some pretty colourful job on these things. So let's get these underway. What I'm going to do now, I mentioned on the Numidian video, and also on many occasions, I kind of much prefer to paint on a lighter or even a grey coloured base undercoat. But for these, I'm going to change the habit of a lifetime, and I'm going to spray these black, matte black, all over. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to drag brush with white over them. So let's spray these up and we'll show you what that looks like. Right, so there they go. They're undercoated with just a matte black. In this case, it's a Halford's black. It doesn't really matter. Something that's nice and matte and gives a very good coverage. So next up, I'm going to use this very old makeup brush, and I'm just using a straight white paint. This will probably muck up the autofocus. And unlike a normal dry brush where you take off most of it, I'm not going to take off terribly much, and I'm just going to drag it across. I call this drag brushing, but I'm no expert on painting. All I'm trying to do is just get the higher levels of the model, or the models, covered, so that the black sort of disappears into the background and is sort of a shading, natural shading. So as I say, if you were doing this as dry brushing, you'd be a bit fed up with yourself, but for this I want it to be a little bit of a covering on the figure. And of course, part of the thing with these, they're going to be ranked up, so you're probably not going to see half of it, but I kind of feel that they dice better if they're fully painted. So there you go. So I've done that with all of the, I think I had 18 bases, 18 strips of Numidian, Carthaginian heavy infantry, German heavy infantry. You can see it's sort of, you can still see the black showing through, and that will give a nice base for our next colour. So quite pleased with how that's come out. So we'll let them dry thoroughly and then we'll come back. Right, so our Libyans are undercoated and dry brushed and ready to go. Now, according to most of the write-ups, the Libyans were quite heavily armoured. They were heavy infantry after all. They had a bronze helmet and bronze greaves on the front of them, and then they had mail shirts. So basically most of this is going to be metallic. Now, looking at the figures themselves, it looks like these guys have got bare lower arms there, and the tops of their legs at the back are flesh, and then the greaves will probably start about a couple of millimeters down from the figure. Now, obviously half of these are going to be hidden because they're going to be stacked behind the rank in front, around behind them, so you won't see the backs of half of these. But I like to paint them. It doesn't take any much longer, and I think when I've got the paint out and the brush out, I might as well do it. And also I think they roll better. That's my view. So I'm going to start with the flesh. I'm going to use Gulliman's Flesh contrast paint because I think this is one of the best contrast paints out there. Like the effect, particularly on a light background, which of course these guys have. And I'm just going to blob the faces. Not going to be terribly accurate. I'm just going to whack them in. The more I look at these, the more I like them because they've got a bit of variation in the sizes, and I like that. You know, this dude here is definitely smaller than the one next to him. You know, we're all human and they're all come in different shapes and sizes, right? So I'll just do these. There we go. Now I don't think you're going to see anything measurable on the front of them, so I'm not going to bother with anything there. And then I'll just do the lower bit of their arms here. There we go. Don't know whether it's always difficult to paint around a camera. Now the one you really need to put a little bit of time on a little bit of time, a microsecond more, is the side rank guy because his arm comes down. So you need to. That probably will be visible when they're all ranked up. So there you go. That's the arms done. Doesn't matter if I splosh on the male because I'm going to do that. And I'm just going to do the tops of their legs here. Again, making sure on the guy on the left hand side and the right hand side, in this case, he is the bronze or the flesh tone goes right round his thigh. Oops. You can just run the brush down here, it doesn't really matter. Sorry, hay fever. There you go. And that is the first stage done. Let those dry and we'll be back. Right, so that's all dry and finished. So you can see I've done all the skin tone. Basically we're using the Gulliman's. So there's a bit of a shine on today. I'm next going to use, this is Army Paint Plate Metal, which I like as a colour, and what I'm going to do with this is do the shoulders at the front here on the figures, also making sure again I get the guy on the right of the line, get his forearms covered, and just do the shoulders like that. While I'm here, I'll do the spear tips like so, spin them around, and just do the mail on the back. Now, so we'll do the rest of these and then let them dry and back for the next stage. Right, so next up we're going to do the bronze. I'm going to use Army Paint Weapon Bronze from their metallic range. Quite a bright colour, but going to dull it down with a wash later on. Now, looking at all the descriptions of Libyan spearmen and reading some of the stories about them, they had bronze greaves, so we're just going to do the legs here, the helmets, and also the big shields. And then on the back we'll finish off the helmets and also do the backs of the legs. And you know, that can be done pretty quickly, especially the leg bits, which is kind of fun, to be absolutely honest. Real production line stuff. So a little bit of paint on the brush and just run it down the back like that. Don't worry about if you're getting this spear shafts there, but we'll come back and do them later. So just whooshing it straight down the back of the legs, and job's a good one. So I'll finish off the rest of these and then we'll move on to the next. Right, so there we go. I've done the boots front and back on these figures. I've done the spear shafts, also down under the feet here, where it's not terribly clear anyway, so probably by the time we've put some washes on these it won't really matter anyway, but I've done it for completeness. Also the sides, the back, sorry, I've done the boots again, the poles of the spear points. Well, I've just noticed one that I've missed. Just there, just down the side of it. Missed the side, which is really annoying. Anyway, so that's all done. Is now. I've also done the belts on the male shirts. Now, interesting. Apparently, Carthaginians didn't like belts and didn't tend to wear them, but they had to with these male shirts. So there you go. Interesting little anecdote. So what I'm going to do is, I've seen people do different versions of the shields, and I kind of like the idea. I saw multicoloured shields, but I thought what I might do to sort of produce a unit cohesion, I'm going to do sort of versions of red. So I've got a pure red here. I've got what's this? Deep red. This is a fuchsia, I think it is, and this is a purple. And I'm going to just basically fill in the odd shield just round up to the rim. I'm not going to do the rims, but I'm just going to do the inner bit of the shields on a few of them, just to sort of break up the monotony of the bronze shield fronts, like that. So I'll do 2 or 3 of those on the different bases, and we'll come back and do the final final for now, wash stage. Right, so I have painted the shields on these Libyans, or African Heavy Infantry. I've alternated them round, and I've done the same with the other bases, just to sort of get random effect with the colours. What I also did, which I neglected, and thanks to Martin, who pointed out the errors of my way on his video, I thought that was a mail shirt sleeve on the figures, but actually I think it probably is cloth. So I've used the opportunity to bring the same colour schemes through. So this regiment, battalion, whatever, will be the red one, or everything's red based, which will help me identify them when I'm taking them out of the box. Will also help identification on the table and so forth. So that's what I'm going to do, and then I'll probably do a blue one and, I don't know, a green one with the third I've got to do. So that's all done. I'm just going to give it a complete wash with Nuln Oil, and just sort of dampen down some of the brightness, but also get some degree of shade into the figure. I mean, you know, this sort of size figure isn't going to generate a huge amount of opportunity to highlight, which is good because I'm lazy, and at the end of the day I'm just trying to get these boots on the table as quickly as possible. See what I did there? Right, just do the backs. Talk amongst yourselves. So, and I think these are lovely and easy to paint, and they come out pretty well, I think. Quite pleased how they come out. So there you go, that's just a wash over the whole thing. I was tempted to do multiple different colours of washes, but in the end I just went straight with trusty Nuln Oil, and quite happy with how that's turned out. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do, which is a little cheaty, let me put that one away while it dries. So here's one I did earlier, Blue Peter moment and all that, for those of you in the UK. So a bit bright today, I don't know, hopefully this is showing up. I've got here a Sharpie pen. It's actually a Crawford and Black pen, there you go, with a very fine nib on it. And what I'm going to do is just go around the inner rim of the shield, like that, and just accentuate the edging. See what I'm doing? Hopefully you can see. There we go. And I'm using the smallest nib size. This pen has a bigger size as well, but just using the black. Whoops. There you go. I think that's quite effective. So, oops. That doesn't really need to let it dry. So what I'm going to do now is just do a little bit of highlighting, and all I'm going to do, now you don't need to do this, this is something that I'm just going to do because I just fancy improving a lot of these figures. So I'm going to just put little specks of skin tone and also some gold. So let me just get the paints out and I'll be back. Right, so as I say, I'm just going to do this. You don't really, if you're doing mass-produced troops, you probably don't need to worry about this. I'm going to use Army Painter Tanned Flesh, but any kind of slightly lighter colour to the one you've used for the base is a good option. All I'm going to do is just try and pick out very gently the noses of these figures. Like so, just a little dot using a very fine brush. And then I'll do the lower jaw. Just want to add something to them, just to, I think that'll probably do there. And then probably don't need to do this at all because it won't be seen for most of them, but I'm going to do the bare arms certainly of the guy on the side, but also just pick out the elbow joint. Oops, yeah, elbow joint on these guys here. No idea whether this is showing up on the video, but I'll show you a close-up afterwards. There you go. And maybe while we're here, we'll just do the backs of the thighs. Bearing in mind, half of these figures, you're not even going to see these because they'll be mashed up against their fellows. There you go. I don't know whether you can see that. Hopefully you can. So let's just clean that brush, and then I've got here, this is another Army Painter Greedy Gold, and all I'm going to do with that is put a little bit on the top of the helmets, just to sort of show where the shine might come down from the sun in a very hot Italy. I'll just do there's a sort of a crest thing on the back of the helmet, so I'm going to do that too. There you go. So that's that. So let me do the rest of these, and I'll be back with the pretty much final stage. Right, so what I've done now, so I finished off all that little, well, laughingly called highlights, and I think it just makes a little bit of, puts a bit more shine on the figures. What I've done, what I'm going to do now, sorry, is I've got some of these, another cheaty for me, our Dom's cheaty approach. So I've got some of these Posca paint markers, which are great. They're water-based and they're permanent, and they work on metals. They come in a variety of colours here, so I'm going to take the white one first, and all I'm going to try and do, oh, incidentally, I've doubled these up now because there's no point doing any shield designs on the ones that are going to be in the back row because they're going to be hidden. So first of all, I'm going to try, while you're watching, and freehand. Right, so you do have to shake these quite vigorously and also work the tip, so to speak. So let's try that again. So you can see here, I'm going to try and freehand one of the sort of symbols like that. I mean, it's not going to win any art classes, but what the hell, it's better than nothing. So I'm going to do a number of these, find the sort of designs you see on the Warlord website, just to break up the monotony of the shields. I will come back when I've finished, and we will see what it looks like. Maybe a complete botch job, but it's better than I'm ever going to do with a paintbrush. So, right, back in a bit. Right, so there you go. Shields are done. And they'll pass muster, I suppose. What I've done next is take the back ranks off their plinths and super glued down the front rankers. I'm going to get out my trusty Vallejo. This is brown earth, because I quite like it. It's got a sort of a yellowy look to it, if you can see inside there. And I am going to build up. Oops, that one's stuck to the paper. Let's try this one then, shall we? And just build up around the base. Now, in some ways, I find this the most difficult bit of painting these figures, or getting these figures on the table, because it's all very well the front ranks and the back of the back ranks, but the middle is really awkward. And it's a lot easier if you're using the sort of geek villain stuff, or you're just plastering, you know, that sort of grassy effect on it. But if you're trying to do this sort of sandy mud, it's a bit more tricky, because so just getting, you've got to do it in the middle and leave enough space for the back rank to stick down, otherwise they're going to keep falling off, or you're not going to stick them, and that is a pain in the bum. So there you go. What I can do is, once the mud is reasonably where I want it, is then just get a wet paintbrush, an old paintbrush, and just so get it nice and wet, and then just work it around. But I like to use a blade. This isn't the blade I tend to use. Can't find my grandma's old butter knife, which I use is my pièce de résistance from this. So let's see whether we can do this. I mean, it doesn't matter too much if you get it all down the back of the guys in front, because you're not going to see that. But I just feel I want to try and, if I want those sixes when I need them, and those ones when, and avoid the ones when I don't, I want to make sure they are well and truly prepped. And it does matter, you know. So there you go. So I've put that down the middle there. I've blocked up all those lovely guts. And now what I'm going to do is get the back rankers. There we go. Bit of super glue, and hope I can stick them in without losing the holes. I can, if necessary, just take the hole, snip the holes off and just stick them down. But yeah, it is what it is. So I've done that. I'm just going to finish off building up the rest of the base, and then what I will probably do, not probably will do, I will do, is what I said about getting a damp paintbrush and just sort of using it to smooth in the gap between the two ranks so that you can't see the base anymore. I won't do it too soon, because trust me, the super glue and paintbrushes, even old ones, doesn't really go together, so need to make sure that glue is well and truly set before I start to run even a damp old brush down there. So I'll be back when I've done this, and hopefully show you what they look like. So there you go, that is the unit of Libyan Heavy Spearmen finished. And I'm quite pleased with how they've turned out. You know, for a very quick and simple paint job that will get the boots on the table as quickly as possible, I think they've come out very nicely indeed. So the hand-drawn emblems on the shields are okay. They're okay. Better than I could have done with the paintbrush, so I'm going to take that. They've had a varnish, a matte varnish over the top, yeah, they'll be fine for the table. So hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. As I say, I'm just trying to do something that makes it simple for people to get them on the table, which is basically what I do. Keep it simple, and you know, just get that effective force fighting, because at the end of the day, if they're sitting on the paint queue, they're not fighting, and that's what I want my figures to be doing, is to paint them up so I can actually use the damn things. I know you can use them unpainted, but I like to at least have a modicum of paint on my figures before I fight. So Libyan heavy infantry were pretty much a constant feature of Carthaginian armies of the Punic period. They had largely replaced citizen phalanxes that was very much a tradition of the Greek world. You know, wealthy residents of city-states would contribute their time and would equip themselves with sort of necessary equipment to be a hoplite. But as Carthage became more and more of a trading and very wealthy nation, less and less citizens actually were involved in the army, and they replaced them with mercenaries. And the Libyans were probably the core of most Carthage forces. They were started out very much as hoplites, so traditional spear-armed, big shields, cuirasses, that kind of stuff. But over time, they evolved. Their shields became much flatter, still circular. They tended to wear mail, and again, they continued to use the spear. Indeed, there's some reports that after some of the amazing results that Hannibal had in his battles with the Romans, there was so much Roman equipment left over from their heavy defeats that many of the Libyans were re-equipped with sort of mail shirts and the equipment that wouldn't have looked out of place with the Romans. Although they never apparently adopted the pilum, they maintained using the spear throughout their service with the Carthaginian forces, and they also used an Iberian-style gladius, a sword, which actually the Romans copied themselves and became the Roman gladius over time. So, Libyan heavy infantry should definitely be a core part of your army if you're playing Carthaginian in Epic Hail Caesar, or any kind of Hail Caesar for that matter. They were notoriously durable. They were a force that Hannibal and the other Carthaginian commanders could largely rely on to hold the line. And in the Hail Caesar Epic rules, they're reflected with some of the upgrades they can go. So in Hail Caesar, they are fielded as 3 bases, and that reflects them being standard formation. And their stats are kind of interesting. So they're fairly nondescript when they're sort of unupgraded, if you like. They have a clash of 7, a sustained of 7, which is nice. So they're durable, as I say. Short range of 3, although they don't have missiles. It's more for support battles. And a morale save of 4 plus stamina of 6. And they come in at 29 points. But to reflect their sort of veteran status, particularly in the latter period of the Second Punic Wars, where they were really, really veteran forces and very experienced in battle, you can spend 7 points to upgrade them, to give them the elite category, which means that if you're ever disordered, 4 plus, and you can recover that disorder immediately. Phalanx, which allows them to ignore defeats in hand-to-hand of up to 2 casualties difference, so that again helps that durability. And also Tough Fighter, which gives them 1 reroll in their fight for 7 points. That makes them quite expensive, 36 points, but bear in mind you are going to have much more brittle forces around you, so this is a unit that can really stick in there and stand in the line against these dastardly Romans who are going to be throwing pilums and everything else at you. And their morale save of 4 in the first round means that against pilum armed troops they're going to be saving on 5. But those extra benefits, phalanx particularly, should allow them to stick in there enough to then come back and fight their case in the second round and onwards. Also, because they're heavy infantry with large shields, they get the benefit of being more durable, shall we say, to shooting, and anybody shooting to their front arc will be taking an additional -1 on their dice rolls to reflect firing at heavy infantry. So they're going to be an interesting unit. As I say, you've got to field them if you're fielding a Carthaginian army, and I would certainly be looking to upgrade mine to reflect that elite and veteran status to make them the truly effective Libyan heavy infantry that they should be. So I hope you found it useful. If you did, please give it a like and share and subscribe and do all those good YouTubey things. And I'll be back with another unit as I paint through this wonderful epic Punic Wars Hail Caesar set that Warlord sent me. So thanks to them once again for sharing. Stay safe, stay well, and I will see you again soon. This is Dom, signing out.